Excuse me, Manatos. How can you call the Egyptian hieroglyphs a writing system? They are more like a collection of doodles. How can anyone read or write them?
That's easy. That's the hieroglyph for the letter A, or Aleph, which is also...
Ox, that's not an ox, that's a bird. I don't see any horns or ears, I see a beak and feathers.
Trust me, it's an ox. The Egyptians knew what they were doing.
I doubt it. Anyway, I'm Shulamo, and I'm here to talk about the Hebrew alphabet. The Hebrew alphabet is a descendant of the Phoenician alphabet, which was the first phonetic lettering system. It has 22 consonant letters, and it is written from right to left. It is an abjad, which means it does not have vowel letters, but uses diacritical marks instead.
Excuse me, Shulamo. How can you call the Hebrew alphabet a phonetic lettering system? It does not have vowel letters. How can anyone read or write it?
Well, Demetrius, the Hebrew alphabet is a phonetic lettering system. It represents the sounds of the Hebrew language, and it does not need vowel letters, because the vowel sounds are implied by the context and the grammar.
Oh, really? Then can you read this word for me?
That's easy. That's the word for bread, or lechem.
Bread? That's not bread. That's a bunch of squiggles.
Well, it's a simple and elegant way of writing bread. You see, the first letter is lamed, which makes the sound anmal. The second letter is het, which makes the sound dakka. The third letter is mem, which makes the sound m. And the fourth letter is silent.
Silent? Why have a silent letter?
Well, it's a marker for the feminine gender. You see, the Hebrew language has grammatical gender, and it affects the endings of words.
I don't see any gender. I see a waste of space. I doubt it. Anyway, I'm Demetrius, and I'm here to talk about the Greek alphabet. The Greek alphabet is a descendant of the Phoenician alphabet, which was improved by the Greeks. It has 24 letters, 7 of which are vowel letters, and it is written from left to right, or boustrophodon, which means alternating directions. It is the first true alphabet, which means it represents both consonant and vowel sounds.
Excuse me, Demetrius. How can you call the Greek alphabet a true alphabet? It has too many vowel letters. How can anyone read or write it?
Well, Marcus, the Greek alphabet is a true alphabet. It represents the sounds of the Greek language, and it has the right number of vowel letters, because the Greek language has many vowel sounds.
Oh, really? Then can you pronounce this word for me?
That's easy. That's the word for life, or Zoe.
Life? That's not life. That's a mouthful.
Well, it's a precise and expressive way of writing life. You see, the first letter is zeta, which makes the sound zeta. The second letter is omicron, which makes the sound o. The third letter is epsilon, which makes the sound e. The fourth letter is iota, which makes the sound I. The fifth letter is omicron, which makes the sound O, and the sixth letter is ete, which makes the sound EE.
I don't hear any sounds. I hear a choir.
Well, it's a beautiful and harmonious way of writing life. You see, the Greek language has vowel harmony, which means the vowels in a word have to match in quality and quantity.
I don't see any harmony. I see a mess.
Trust me, it's elegant. The Greeks knew what they were doing.
I doubt it. Anyway, I'm Marcus, and I'm here to talk about the Roman alphabet. The Roman alphabet is a descendant of the Etruscan alphabet, which was derived from the Greek alphabet. It has 26 letters, 5 of which are vowel letters, and it is written from left to right. It is the most widely used alphabet in the world, and it is the basis of most modern alphabets in Europe and the Americas.
Excuse me, Marcus. How can you call the Roman alphabet the most widely used alphabet in the world? It has too few vowel letters. How can anyone read or write it?
Well, Joseph, the Roman alphabet is the most widely used alphabet in the world. It represents the sounds of the Latin language, and it has the optimal number of vowel letters, because the Latin language has few vowel sounds.
Oh, really? Then can you spell this word for me?
That's easy. That's the word for fish, or piscis.
Fish? That's not fish. That's a puzzle.
Well, it's a simple and efficient way of writing fish. You see, the first letter is P, which makes the sound P. The second letter is I, which makes the sound XI. The third letter is S, which makes the sound XL. The fourth letter is C, which makes the sound K. The fifth letter is I, which makes the sound I. and the sixth letter is S, which makes the sound SS.
I don't see any sounds. I see a code.
Well, it's a clear and logical way of writing fish. You see, the Latin language has a regular and consistent spelling system, which means the letters always correspond to the same sounds.
I don't see any system. I see a chaos.
Trust me, it's perfect. The Romans knew what they were doing.
I doubt it. Anyway, thank you all for your presentations. I hope you learned something new and interesting today. Please give our speakers another round of applause. And now let's have some fun. Who wants to play a game of Scrabble?
Scrabble? What's that?
It's a word game where you use letters to form words on a board. It's very fun and educational.
Sounds boring. Can we use hieroglyphs?
No, you have to use the Roman alphabet.
Why?
Because it's the standard alphabet for the game.
That's unfair. The Roman alphabet is too simple and limited.
I agree. The Roman alphabet is too simple and limited. The Hebrew alphabet is much better.
No, the Hebrew alphabet is too complicated and ambiguous. The Greek alphabet is much better.
No, the Greek alphabet is too excessive and confusing. The Roman alphabet is much better.
Enough, enough. Let's just play the game and have some fun.
Fine, but I'm not going to enjoy it.
Me neither. That's Greek to me.
Me neither. It's Roman to me.
Me neither. I don't like games.
This is going to be a long game. The phonetic lettering system is a way of writing speech sounds, using symbols that represent each sound. The earliest known phonetic lettering system was the Proto-Sinaitic script, which was created by Semites, the 12 tribes of Israel living in Egypt around the 15th century BC. They adapted Egyptian hieroglyphs for their own use and language. The Proto-Sinaitic script was brought to the land Israel of Canaan, where it evolved into the Phoenician alphabet, which was used by the Phoenicians, Hebrews, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, and Arameans. The Phoenician alphabet was an abjad, meaning it only had consonant letters and left vowel sounds implicit. The Phoenician alphabet was widely spread by Phoenician merchants across the Mediterranean world, where it was adopted and modified by many other cultures. The Greeks borrowed the Phoenician alphabet and added vowel letters to it, creating the first true alphabet. The Greek alphabet also changed the shapes and names of some letters to suit their language. The Etruscans, who lived in Italy, learned the Greek alphabet from the Phoenicians and adapted it for their own language. The Romans, who conquered the Etruscans, inherited their alphabet and made some minor changes to it, such as adding the letter G and changing the shape of C. The Roman alphabet, also known as the Latin alphabet, is the basis of most modern alphabets in Europe and the Americas. The Roman numeral system is not a phonetic lettering system, but a way of writing numbers using letters of the Latin alphabet. The Roman numerals are based on the Etruscan numerals, which were derived from the Greek numerals. The Roman numerals use 7 letters, I, V, X, L, C, D, and M, which stand for 1, 5, 10, 50, 100, 500, and 1000 respectively. The alphabets of Egypt, Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, and Roman have some similarities and differences. Here is a table that compares the alphabets of each, using ancient Hebrew as an example of the Semitic scripts. Note that the direction of writing varies from left to right to left, or boustrophodon, alternating directions. Language alphabet example direction. Egypt hieroglyphs, Egyptian hieroglyphs, right to left. Hebrew Phoenician, Hebrew alphabet, right to left. Aramaic alphabet, right to left. Greek alphabet, boustrophodon. Roman Latin alphabet, left to right. As you can see, the Semitic scripts share some common letters, such as Aleph, Bet, Gimel, and Daleth, which correspond to Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta in Greek, and A, B, C, and D in Latin. However, the shapes and sounds of the letters changed over time and across regions. The Greek and Latin alphabets also have some unique letters, such as Phi, Psi, and Omega in Greek, and G, J, and Q in Latin. The Egyptian hieroglyphs are very different from the other alphabets, as they use pictorial symbols that can represent sounds, words, or concepts.
I was a young scholar in Paris, fascinated by the mysteries of ancient Egypt. I had learned some Coptic, the last stage of the Egyptian language, from a priest who had visited the city. I had also collected some manuscripts and papyri that had Egyptian scripts on them. I wanted to decipher them and reveal the secrets of the pharaohs. But I was not alone in this quest. There were others who claimed to have the key to the Egyptian hieroglyphs. They were not scholars, but charlatans. They called themselves psychics and said they could communicate with the spirits of the ancient Egyptians. They would charge a fortune for their services and produce false translations that had nothing to do with the original texts. They would make up stories of magic, curses, and hidden treasures. They fooled many people, but not me. I knew they were impostors. One day, I heard the news that changed my life. A French soldier had found a stone near the town of Rosetta in Egypt. The stone had a decree written in 3 languages: ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, Demotic script, and ancient Greek. It was a treasure beyond measure. It could be the key to unlock the Egyptian scripts. The stone was brought to France and put on display at the Institut de France. I rushed to see it. I was amazed by the stone. I recognized some of the Coptic letters in the Demotic script. I also knew some Greek, so I could read the bottom part of the decree. I compared the 2 texts and noticed some similarities. I thought that maybe the Demotic script was a phonetic version of the hieroglyphs. I decided to test my hypothesis. I copied the texts from the stone and took them home. I worked day and night trying to find the correspondences between the scripts. I used the Coptic alphabet as a guide. I also consulted some dictionaries and grammars of Greek and Coptic. I made some progress, but it was not enough. I needed more text to compare. I remembered the manuscripts and papyri that I had. I took them out and looked at them again. To my surprise, I found some of the same signs that were on the stone. I realized that they were also written in Demotic script. I applied the same method that I had used for the stone. I was able to read some of the words and sentences. They were not about magic or curses, but about mundane things like taxes, contracts, and letters. They were the records of the daily life of the ancient Egyptians. They were more valuable to me than any treasure. I was overjoyed. I had made a breakthrough. I had proven that the Demotic script was phonetic and that it used the same alphabet as Coptic. I had also proven that the psychics were wrong. They had no idea what they were talking about. They had been deceiving people with their false translations. I decided to expose them. I wrote a letter to the editor of the Journal des Savants, the most prestigious scientific journal in France. I explained my discoveries and provided some examples of my translations. I also denounced the psychics and their frauds. I challenged them to prove their claims. I signed the letter with my name, Jean-François Champollion. Read the bottom part of the decree. I compared the 2 texts and noticed some similarities. I thought that maybe the Demotic script was a phonetic version of the hieroglyphs. I decided to test my hypothesis. I sent the letter and waited for the response. I expected to be praised and congratulated for my work. I hoped to be recognized as the first person to decipher the Egyptian scripts. I dreamed of becoming famous and respected, but that was not what happened. Instead, I received a letter from the editor. He rejected my letter and refused to publish it. He said that my translations were absurd and impossible. He said that the Egyptian scripts were not phonetic but symbolic. He said that the psychics were more credible than me. He said that I was a fool and a liar. He said that I should stop wasting my time and leave the Egyptian scripts to the experts. I was shocked and angry. I could not believe that the editor had dismissed my work so easily. I could not understand how he could trust the psychics more than me. I could not accept that he had insulted me and my intelligence. I felt betrayed and humiliated. I did not give up. I knew I was right. I knew I had the truth. I decided to write another letter, this time to the Académie des Inscriptions et Belles Lettres, the most prestigious academic institution in France. I hoped that they would be more open-minded and fair. I hoped that they would listen to me and judge me on my merits. I wrote the letter and sent it. I waited for the response. I hoped for the best. But that was not what happened. Instead, I received another letter from the editor. He also rejected my letter and refused to publish it. He said the same things that the previous editor had said. He said that my translations were absurd and impossible. He said that the Egyptian scripts were not phonetic, but symbolic. He said that the psychics were more credible than me. He said that I was a fool and a liar. He said that I should stop wasting my time and leave the Egyptian scripts to the experts. I was devastated. I had no more hope. I had no more support, I had no more recognition, I had no more respect, I had nothing. I decided to give up. I decided to stop working on the Egyptian scripts. I decided to forget about the Rosetta Stone and the manuscripts and the papyri. I decided to forget about my dreams and ambitions. I decided to forget about everything. I threw away all my papers and notes. I burned all my books and dictionaries. I destroyed all my copies and translations. I erased all the traces of my work. I erased all the traces of my life. The Rosetta Stone is a slab of stone that has a decree written in 3 languages: Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, Demotic script, and Ancient Greek. It was discovered in 1799 by a French soldier near the town of Rosetta in Egypt. The stone was important for deciphering the Egyptian hieroglyphs, which had been lost for centuries. The Egyptian language was spoken in ancient Egypt and belonged to the Afro-Asiatic language family. It had several stages, such as Old Egyptian, Middle Egyptian, Late Egyptian, and Coptic. The language declined after the Arab conquest of Egypt in the 7th century CE, when Arabic became the dominant language. Coptic, the last stage of Egyptian, survived as a liturgical language of the Coptic Church, but it had a few native speakers by the 17th century. The Egyptian language came back to life thanks to the efforts of scholars who studied the Rosetta Stone and other ancient texts. The most famous of them was Jean-François Champollion, who announced the transliteration of the Egyptian scripts in 1822. He showed that the hieroglyphs were a combination of phonetic and ideographic signs, and that they used the same alphabet as the Coptic language since then. Many more texts have been translated, and the knowledge of the Egyptian language and culture has increased.